Hi, folks. It's meteorologist Don Paul with Don Paul Blathers. This is not so much blather as a distinct addition to tomorrow's very warm forecast that should be paid note. In fact, if I were still in local TV news, we'd probably get one of those cheesy breaking news banners for this, even though I would argue against it. But we do have a risk that is showing up for late tomorrow that wasn't showing up yesterday and the day before for our part of the country. The area at higher risk of severe weather today is already undergoing some of it. This is high resolution satellite imagery. We were expecting it here in the plains and in parts of the Midwest, eventually curling off into Indiana. In fact, let's take a look at current radar as reflectivity has increased. The amount of thunderstorm activity on the increase. At this time, most of these cells do not appear to be severe, but we did already earlier today have some tornadic activity. Now, for us, what has changed is some of this activity could lean into western New York primarily late tomorrow. And with that in mind, the Storm Prediction Center has amended their outlook for severe weather for tomorrow as of this morning, and they just upgraded it again, not to a tinderbox situation, but all of our area is under a slight risk for severe thunderstorms. The primary threat would be late tomorrow and very early tomorrow evening. And just to refresh your memory, severe, when you hear a meteorologist saying that, means if they become severe, we have trouble. That produces damaging wind gusts close to 60 miles an hour, and not a sustained wind. And there's even a very remote chance of an isolated tornado when a cold front will be approaching us after the big warm up tomorrow. Let's take a look at some recent high resolution model output for tomorrow. And we're starting out pre-dawn hours, and you see a few spotty showers already here, and this is at about 5 in the morning, and then we move ahead to 6. 7. These showers are being produced by an approaching warm front. The other side of the front, that's where the heat, so to speak, is. And by Western New York standards this spring, it'll qualify. We're going to be in a south to southwest flow as the day goes along. And notice as we're getting into the morning, we're already seeing most of the area rain free. So the activity for tomorrow is still spotty and sparse most of the day. No washout is indicated. As the day goes along, a wind from the south-southwest coming down the slopes will heat some interior locations up to what may be the warmest day so far. It will be locally cooler at both lake shores. First of all, the flow is not going to be quite strong enough to push the warm air down the escarpment by the Niagara County shoreline. So Youngstown, Wilson, Olcott, Newfane, you're not going to get as warm as areas farther south in Niagara County, such as Lockport. And across the Lake Erie shoreline, same goes for downtown Buffalo and all the way down to Ripley. The lake temperature is about 45, so the wind coming in off that lake in the afternoon will cool readings back to the upper 60s and low 70s at the immediate waterfront. So we're getting through the day here. Now we're into late morning. Notice almost no precipitation, an isolated shower possible. And then we get into early afternoon, and the model is showing an isolated thunderstorm up around Genesee County. This would be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And no model nails these things to the hour, 24 hours in advance, just giving you some overall perspective. Then when we get to late in the afternoon, after basking in this warmth, the low pressure system does have a cold front, which is crossing through Detroit, and you can see what's going on there. This is at 4 o'clock in the model's estimation. Then we get to the end of the afternoon, and if the timing on this were just right, we'd be okay through the afternoon hours. Now we're coming up to 6 o'clock, and notice this model has some strong-looking thunderstorms on the Niagara Peninsula getting closer. 7 o'clock in the model, they're here. And some of these could produce damaging straight-line winds, some hail, and a remote chance for an isolated tornado, although the tornadic threat seems pretty low. And then they diminish to more garden variety showers as the evening goes along. Now let's go back a few hours and see what kinds of temperatures this model is putting out. And they're pretty impressive, I must say so. And we get into the 2 o'clock hour, and the model is showing low 80s up around Lockport. A little cooler at the immediate Lake Ontario shoreline. See the yellow? And the same goes for the immediate Lake Erie shoreline. Then the winds later on in the afternoon become a little more southwesterly instead of southerly, so that will cool the shoreline down more noticeably. But here, look at these readings showing in the low 80s. Maybe they're overdone by a few degrees, but we should make at least the upper 70s. However, if you're taking a walk down by Canal Side, that 81-degree reading does not apply to Canal Side. A little bit cooler right by the lake. And even here at 5 o'clock, we're still seeing low 80s in this model. And then the winds become more southwesterly as the front goes by. This would be the witching hour in this model. Temperatures begin to drop back, those strong to possibly severe thunderstorms crossing the area. So the overall picture, mostly rain-free most of Sunday, maybe a few showers or thunder showers in the morning as the warm front goes by. Then the temperatures soar through the 70s, some low 80s inland by early and mid-afternoon. Then at the end of the day, a potential squall line with some very strong to possibly severe thunderstorms approaching us. And then we do cool off to some extent. We go back to below average temperatures as we get into Monday, but only a degree or two below average on Monday. Tuesday, we'll go from Monday's upper 60-degree highs, upper 60s, to the low 60s on Tuesday. But then the overall upper air pattern still looks favorable for warming to resume later next week. Can't even begin to talk about any precipitation chances on Memorial Day weekend. It's just too far out. But there is no indication of any sharp cooling for that weekend, with warm ridging occurring over the eastern United States. So that's the basic picture. As my dogs begin to bark, they're saying, "Hey, Daddy, you talked enough. Please shut up and play with us." Okay, I will talk to you soon.